All right. Well, what are we? We're good afternoon. It's Tuesday, May 19th, and welcome to In the Matrix. The purpose of this program, as it always has been, is to introduce you to the people and the insights and their expertise to better help us navigate the three realms of money management, money mindset, and money motive. And for those of you who are in the matrix, you know that's when these three realms come together that we are finally able to master the magnificence of money. And so today we have a very special guest with us. I'm super excited for today's call. Today we have, and I have to say the name, Laura Laurence. I swear she should have her own radio show. Hello, this is Laura Laurence coming to you live. I love it. I love it. And so Laura's here to speak with us about the mind-body connection, and how sometimes these little aches and pains that we come across in our day-to-day life, how that's really more a symptom of something deeper. And today we're going to talk about the correlations between those aches and pains and our relationship with money. And so Laura and I met, it was almost a year ago, right? It was October 2019 at WeCon. And funny story, Laura, she so graciously was managing all the PowerPoint slides and taking it on for all the presenters. And I went up to her with my USB. And first thing I found out is that I didn't have an hour. I had 20 minutes. I was like, what am I going to cut? What am I going to cut? But one of the things that I love about you, Laura, is that really right at the beginning, I felt that we had this cosmic connection because we were speaking the same language, right? Like neurons firing and epigenetics and cellular structure and receptor membranes and science teacher, right? Or is it biology? Can you
Yeah,
remind me?
biology.
Yeah,
Biology
okay.
and chemistry. Yeah.
Beautiful. And so wellness educator now, teacher, you're a BodyTalk practitioner, which is what we're going to explore a little bit today, right? And mindfulness coach, right? All of those things put together. And how long have you been doing the BodyTalk for?
So it's going on 5 years that I've operated this practice here. So yeah, 5 years of having clients in my body talk room. So it's been fantastic.
Beautiful. Well, and I'm super pumped because on a side note, I'm going to give this a shot too. I'm really looking forward to, to experiencing what everyone's been talking about just these huge moments of bliss and surrender and pain being gone. And sometimes we find the hard way to get things done, right? And it's my understanding that your work is definitely can be much easier instead of trying to dig in.
Yeah, it can be easy, it can be hard, it can be whatever perspective or was like the hardest time in my life that led me to body talk. So when I graduated high school, I was going to be a doctor. I got a stethoscope. I had, was taking on my pre-med classes, and then fear got the best of me. Then, which now I know isn't fear, it was synchronicity. It was my internal compass knowing that I wanted to be in that space, but that a Western medical doctor was likely not going to be the best way for me to do the kind of work I wanted to do. And I can say that now, 20 some years later. And so, yeah, I'm formally trained as a teacher. I have a Bachelor of Education. I majored in biology and chemistry. I minored in French. I speak a couple different languages, love to travel. Did the whole, married my high school sweetheart, had a plan of how many kids we were going to have, exactly when we were, try to do in terms of controlling the future for themselves. And of course, like most people watching this, that didn't happen exactly the way I envisioned it to happen. So in 2012, I had a cosmic hammer moment where, again, everyone who's watching this, you will all be nodding because you've all had your own, or if you haven't, it's coming because we all experience them in one way, shape, or form in our life, right?
Absolutely.
And my then husband, who I'd been with for 17 years, and we had two small children, aged 2 and 6. we found ourselves then in a separation that led to a divorce. It was a very painful, challenging time for me. It affected a lot of different avenues of my life. And long story short, it led me out of my teaching job and into opening my own wellness practice called Mind Body Balance Therapies. So that's the long and short of it. And the only reason I became a BodyTalk practitioner, because most people don't dream about being a BodyTalk practitioner. They're not like, we don't talk about it in career classes. Usually something happens in their life. They end up being a client of BodyTalk. It changes their life intensely, and then they study it as they want to introduce this amazing modality to other people. So that's kind of what happened. That Cosmic Hammer event in 2012 led me to a friend lining up a BodyTalk session. I thought it was complete crap the first time I went, I'll have to admit. I didn't understand it. I wasn't ready. I wasn't in the right headspace. I was still very left-brained. I was still in a lot of pain, and I wasn't ready for the layers to be unmasked. But something kept drawing me back to it. And then I eventually trained in it. And like I said, I've been doing this now for 5 years. So
Beautiful.
yeah,
So
that's the long and short of it.
I love it. And so can you explain to us, because I know on this call we're going to get into, what the body's trying to tell us, but maybe before we do that, let's get a better understanding of what BodyTalk is specifically, and then we'll get into how some things show up for us physically if we're not dealing with them emotionally.
Absolutely. So BodyTalk is what I call a complementary therapy. It's something that you do in addition to all the other tools that you have in your wellness belt, right? Like you'd go for a massage or a chiropractic appointment or acupuncture. We're a complementary modality. But I like to say we level up with this complementary modality, because we can address things in one session that all of those modalities can address. So it's a complementary healing modality that seeks to restore the body's innate wisdom, the body's innate intelligence. It has a program that we don't think it through. It does it for healing and repair and homeostasis. But stress absolutely gets it off course quickly and dangerously. And then we start to see manifestations of our, mental and emotional and spiritual pain in our physical body. So we use an approach called a top-down causation model in BodyTalk. Now there's a lot of complementary modalities that still treat just the physical body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you have a sore back, you go to the, chiropractor or a massage therapist, which I'm going to this afternoon after this. So I still engage in those.
Hence complementary, right?
Yeah. And
Yep.
it fixes the problem for a little bit, but I've never met anyone who's gone for one massage or one chiropractic treatment,
Right.
and they've never had that problem again. That's because we cannot fix a physical symptom with a physical modality, because that's not where it's starting. That's not where the disconnect and dis-ease is really rooted. So at BodyTalk, we go deeper. We look into the subconscious programming and what we call consciousness. So we use a dynamic systems model, and understanding that all parts of the body-mind function in a dynamic interaction with one another. So every single atom, cell, organ, system is in constant communication with one another since the moment of conception. And so much of our programming is not just DNA-based physical programming, but more so mental and emotional and spiritual programming.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So I think, and so maybe if I take a step back, because you're saying everything, and I am drawing correlations with the matrix, right? And how we understand our buckets. It's terrible of my mind and how it's doing this. But so if we look at step one, which is all about the money mechanics, seeking clarity around the numbers, right? If we think about our magic number and what we're looking to create. Step two is understanding the blocks, which is the subconscious, right? And what we're talking about here in the matrix world, it's on a surface level, we talk about 95% of the reason why we don't make money is because we've got this beautiful subconscious that's trying to protect us. But in that effort of protecting us, it wants to keep us in a state that it is comfortable with, right? It's familiar with. And so the cells of the subconscious getting its programming from the emotional state of whether it was conception or that, 0 to 12, and what were we sitting in? Was it conflict? Was it stress? Was it uncertainty? And then we move into week 3, which is about reprogramming the cells of the subconscious. We again just choose emotions that better serve us, right? Whether it's security and safety and joy and love. So what the body talk then is, so correct me if I'm, help me kind of see this through. With our subconscious, when we've got this programming, like you said, the DNA and the emotional piece of that behind it, when we don't start healing some of those things, this is where we start to get the physical manifestation, right? Is that
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, so body talk will work into your week 3, basically,
Okay.
revealing layers. And here's the beauty about body talk and why so many men and children love it. It's not a you solve it kind of modality. It takes out that left brain structured. I need to dive through these. I need to figure it out, because we're never ever thinking ourselves out of our patterns. Never. The only thing that gets us out of our patterns is conscious-based work, mindfulness, meditation, body talk, where we go beyond that left brain thinking process. And that's where most people, they hit a wall.
Love it.
They get so stuck.
I love, you know what's so funny, Laura, is that in week 3, this is when, I'll be totally honest, this is when most people drop out of the challenge. And it's the easiest work because it's just emotional alignment, right? It's the easiest work, but we are, just like you said, people are so bent on, I need to do work, I need to dig harder, I need to think more, I need to, like it's amazing. And then for them just to think, no, really, you just get into alignment. Like that's what you do. And I know words like meditation and mindfulness start to scare people because some people aren't familiar with it and not aware of it, and they think it's all this, woo, what are you talking about? But it's just that emotional state, isn't it? It's just alignment.
Well, and the thing is that it's not that easy of work, which is why most people will like ditch out, because what we have to, when we start to work through the layers and become aware, all we're doing is we're observing. So in body talk, the healing comes in the observation. So I am the bridge to which I help, and which you would do in the matrix here. You help reveal patterns and programs to people. Okay, you help reveal them. Now what happens is, immediately if someone has something in front of their face that's ouchy, what's going to happen is our subconscious programming that's meant to keep us safe and secure is going to say, no thanks, no thanks, this sounds really great, but guess what, I don't. So you know what, I've had people come in for one session and never come back, or they haven't come back for an entire year because they just were not ready to see those layers.
Yeah, it's just uncomfortable, right? It's just doing. And so I'm always so mindful when people are like, oh, this is going to be hard work. I'm choosing to get people to reframe the hard into the uncomfortable work.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? Like that's all it is. It's just like,
and let's look at, in body talk, we look at the law of dualities. And as a science teacher, I love it. It can't just be hard. It's also easy. It just can't be easy. It's also hard. We cannot look at anything in our lives with just one side of what I call the teeter-totter. So we never want to be sad. It's like we don't want those emotions, angry and sad, but guess what? We need them, because if we don't have sadness, we can't actually enjoy joy and happiness. And anger moves things within the body. It's very much a moving type of emotion. I don't know about you, but I clean my house when I'm angry. It's super efficient. The joke around our house is, let's get mom mad and it'll be clean.
It's all these little triggers, right? And so that's fascinating. I love that one. I was thinking the other day, actually yesterday, about how people thrive under pressure, right?
Yeah,
and how, like,
but that's a program, and that's an attachment. That's what this book has given me. It's not, nothing is better or worse than any other program that's out there. It is, and it's your program. And once you observe it and are aware of it, you most understand why you're rejecting the other program. That's where the real work is done. Why am I rejecting rest?
Right.
Why am I rejecting? It's because my belief systems about worth are directly aligned with, I need to be productive, I need to make money, I need to have new ideas coming out. And we're feeling this right now more than ever, because now we have all this time, and time and money are two factors that come up every single body talk session, usually, that I do. That is how strong our belief systems are about those two things in our lives.
Wow. And and I always think this is this is my opinion on this, but time, love, money, it's all the same thing, right? You can create the same statements and it's like, well, I'm short on time, short on money, short on love, right? I don't get enough appreciation, probably don't get enough time, probably don't get enough money. It's just the way our brain works. So tell me, so now that you've got us talking about what you see, like what do you see when it comes up for people and money specifically? I mean, it's going to be the same time and appreciation, but where do we typically experience the aches and pains when we're
Oh,
feeling that worth piece? But yeah, you give it to
it,
us.
it can it can come up anywhere in the body. It
Okay.
depends on your programming, right? It
Okay.
depends on where your default is, where you hold your stress. So some people will come in and, they're always experiencing pain in their knees or their neck or their hips or their shoulders. And often what will come up is consciousness, which is consciousness is all that there is. It's this all knowing, it's this connection, that dynamic system understanding of everything on the outside affects us to a cellular level. So for example, when I was going through my divorce, I very much started experiencing right knee ligament pain. Now I was running, and so I could use that as an excuse that it was the running. I was training for a half marathon that created that. But why did it only show up in my right leg and my right knee? Fast forward to some BodyTalk sessions, I found out that what was being held in that knee was two things. Number one, the right side of our body is actually the masculine side. It's the masculinity. So any belief systems about the masculine and our attachments or our, let's say, our relationships with men or the masculine, and if we're having issues, I was going through a divorce, shows up on the right side. And the knees hold a lot of fear. So I was really fearful. I was a young single mom. I now had a single income. And a couple of body talks later, that right knee shifted and I didn't feel the pain. But you want to know when I feel the pain again? When I have some trauma or pain or conflict coming up in my former relationship. That's when. And so now when people say, oh, my back hurts, I'm like, oh, really? So what's going on in your life? Let's talk about it. And they'll be like, oh, I was gardening. Yeah, you were, but why is it that your back hurts and not your neck?
Mm-hmm.
Shoulders, because we hold different things in different parts of our bodies. Now, money can come up anywhere. So, but money consciousness is directly related to programming and our belief systems about self-worth. And when we grow up in, I know you've talked about this, when we grow up in homes where they're short of money, there's always stress about money, there's always apprehension about spending money, because it was just always right there. I mean, that can come up anywhere in the body, but often it'll come up like in those organs, in those parts of the body that really are related to when our sympathetic mode is triggered, like in our kidneys, fear, okay, or in our adrenal glands, in our knees, in our back. Money consciousness often comes up in the back, the lower
Mm-hmm.
back, spine, the shoulders, all of those places in our body where we hold on to burden and we feel that emotional burden. Listen, like emotion is just energy in motion. It is a frequency. It is a wavelength. It is just like your breath. It is just like your blood. It takes up space and it also gets stuck in your body. Like if you've ever, here's what happened to me once this all, and I figured out, oh my gosh, I have to close my shop here. I immediately felt that tightness in my chest that I did when I was going through my divorce. Totally different trauma, but my sympathetic system went, you need to be fearful here. And I felt that as a constriction in my chest. So everybody will feel it somewhere different. Does that kind of answer it? Long-winded?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that, one of my greatest wishes for everybody is that you could detach. And I know our subconscious wants to keep us in the state that we're familiar with. So I think it takes practice, just like meditation. But when you start detaching from your experience, you're able to start to observe, what am I feeling, right? And instead of just the emotion, like, where am I feeling it? What am I feeling? And then starting to make those correlations.
Yeah. And what I do with my clients is write them invite them to use the language, because detaching and like letting go, that's all, as soon as we use those words,
Yeah.
our subconscious defense mechanisms go, nah, not ready to do that, not going to do it. They just won't. So if we change the language a bit and realize that our experiences don't need to be part of our identity forever, like kind of compartmentalize them, like that was my identity when I was 32. That's not what it is anymore. So I don't need to let go of that experience, because for most people it'd be like, then that never really happened, right? I don't need to detach from it because it's always going to be a part of me, but it doesn't need to be a part of my identity in this very moment right now. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And I guess, yeah, I think it's interesting. I find the English language is a challenge, really,
Mm.
to be honest, right? Because one person's, you ask somebody to explain love, and it's like, I don't know, I can't put words around it. And I so get what you're saying, because it is important to actually, the language I would use is to honor, right? To honor those experiences because they have also brought you to where you are, to honor the subconscious because really its intention is to protect you. Although, sometimes we can get a little frustrated with it because we're like, no, 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 let's go over here. And it's like, no, let's stay over here, so how do we, I know you mentioned you were going to tell us a little bit about Louise Hay, because I have to say that as soon as I start to feel, and so when I said disconnect, sorry, and detach, it was more not from the past experiences, but and I find I'm getting a little bit better with it. Detach from our experience as we're sitting here, and I don't know how to put words around it, but sometimes when we're in our head so much, it's this, here's what I'm feeling, here's what I'm going through, and then sometimes the guilt and the shame that can come from that, right? Or I'm feeling this, or I've driven myself too hard, or what's going on with my subconscious. So it was more just this, come out of your head a little bit to actually witness and observe what's going on so that we can come back in and say, we're just going to chart a new path here. Like, we're just going to go this way. So sometimes when I'm feeling, and I love that you mentioned the lower back, because usually that's my go-to, right? When somebody says, oh, I've got some lower back pain. And just like you said, they automatically go to, well, it was gardening, or I got out of the car the wrong way, right? And it's like, well, let's actually just dissect this a little bit. I typically go to the Louise Hay book just because, she's got this in here, the cause and effect, right? So if I stub my toe, I go to her cause and effect, her 30 pages of what does that mean? Lower back, what does that mean? I did not yet go for my ear blockages. But you know what was fascinating? You'll probably love this. This came up with, we were on a call the other day, and oh, where was it? We're like, I wonder what, and I should have marked this page. Maybe I won't even find it right now. I'm not going to do it right now. But we were wondering what influenza meant, the flu. And then we turned to influenza, and it was mass negative belief structures. And we had to laugh because we're like, oh my, when you don't deal with it, right, in the emotional, it starts to manifest physically. And so what would you recommend we do if something comes up and we don't know where to start? So like you said, your right knee starts hurting. We immediately go to, well, let's just bandage it up. Let's do some ibuprofen. But how do we start to make connections before we see a BodyTalk practitioner? Where would you suggest we turn to have a better understanding of what's actually happening emotionally behind the scenes?
So you said it when you were just talking about, be the observer of your own body. When we practice what I teach now, mindfulness, when we can actually use a single pointed focus and quiet the noise from the macrocosm out here and really tune into sensations and feelings and experiences in our own body, we start to be able to observe our patterns in more of like, I think, a less ouchy way. Okay. We can just observe. We don't need to judge, although our default will be to judge. But as soon as we notice that we're judging, just observe that and then be aware of it. Often what's really cool about BodyTalk and mindfulness work is all that's required to shift something often is that's why it's not really a doing modality. Same thing with mindfulness and meditation. You're just breathing and you
Can
are
I interrupt for
really,
1 second? You cut out on that one, and I think it was really important because you were telling us exactly what to do, but it cut out.
oh, okay. So you need only be the observer.
Mm-hmm.
So all that needs to happen for a shift to happen on a conscious level, or what we call the supramental level in this top-down causation understanding, is an observation and an awareness. It's such a passive, beautiful way to deal with our own stuff. So just to be aware of it, to observe it, to be aware of it, and to notice when we're judging it and step back from that judgment and go back into observation and awareness. But we're so ingrained and programmed to be fixers and solvers. And therein lies the problem, right? Because again, you cannot solve a right brain problem with a left brain approach. Okay, you can work through some layers. I mean, my psychologist she became a pivotal point of my inner circle for my healing. But I know that I needed a few other tools to get deeper, because my left brain will always talk myself out of the hard stuff, always. So yeah, I would just say starting, as easy as, here's what I teach in my meditation classes is connect with your breath. I teach something called a heart check-in, and I teach this to little kids as little as 3. It works for 90-year-olds. You just connect with your heart brain and your enteric brain, your tummy brain, and you simply become aware of your breath. You lengthen the inhale. I like to suggest inhale to 3, exhale to 6, and you use your sense of touch to feel the breath and your sense of hearing to hear. I'll tell you what you can't do when you're doing that is think about your stress. Think about how you're going to solve your stress. Think about, what's happening tomorrow. And so anytime we can root ourselves in the present moment, in a mindfulness or a single pointed focused awareness, we are healing on a level that's super simple.
So if we were to break that down step by step, and I feel like I have a back pain and lower back pain, and I haven't made any correlations yet to money. I've just come up with a pain. So so you're suggesting then I just observe the pain to start off with, just sit down, observe the pain, not, sorry, what was that?
And really feel it,
And feel the pain. And that's actually a really interesting comment right there, because I know that a lot of therapists, when they talk to people about healing anxiety, it's actually to walk through the anxiety, to not block it, but to actually continue going through it. So it sounds like you're saying the same thing. So to feel the pain, feel that back pain and observe it, not try to fix it. And then we move into our breath work.
Yeah, and what I will lead people in my meditation classes to do is to send the exhale to that part in the body where you're feeling that tension and you need that release, okay? Because that's a very passive, easy thing to do. And I remember doing this one time for a group of educators, college educators, and there was a gentleman in the back in his 70s, and he said, I cannot believe this, Laura. This entire time I've had 0 knee pain. I never not have knee pain. So that is the power. I mean, your body is programmed to heal and balance itself. That it wants to get back to that balance. We are our worst enemies in that, with the stress and everything that we load on, and everything from the outside world. So yeah, I mean, the simplest thing you can do is to connect with your breath. I see powerful shifts with little kids. Because I have a little kids program that I teach, and it's wonderful. So, I mean, of course, if you want to work through the layers and you really want to look at your relationship with money, an alternative modality like BodyTalk is brilliant. I have found out so much about myself and my relationship to money and how that trickles into all other relationships within my body mind through BodyTalk. It was like mind blowing.
So can you share with us what that looks like? Like how, did you first just feel a pain and then it was just through consistent working through body talk mechanisms that you started to understand what was happening? Or
No,
did you?
no, often in a body talk session, things will come up and people don't even know that it's actually the issue, right? Because they're trying to fix and mask and band-aid other things. But just because my back hurts doesn't mean that's actually where it started, right?
Right.
So what in many of my own sessions, I was in no pain when I went for a session, but emotional pain, right?
Okay.
And then the connection came to, well, Laura, we have money coming up here, and it's coming up in the spine, and it's rooted to your belief system about needing to be the provider and the breadwinner in your family. Tell me about that.
So how does that happen? How
Uh,
does how is she able to extract that information from you?
Yeah, so when I work with clients, we're trained to use our left brain learned knowledge brain with our very deep intuitive processes of our right brain to tap into an all-knowing consciousness that can be observed and focused on in the client. So I'll have people say, like, how did you know that? Like, are you psychic? No, it has nothing to do with that. We all have these incredible intuitive abilities. We had them as children, and then we were programmed and conditioned out of them. But they're there. And so again, through some of the deeper training that I've taken to really get into those subtle senses, like to connect on a really deeper level is what allows me to tune into imbalances in the client's body.
Okay. So it's a little bit about the practitioner's intuition
Yeah.
about what is happening there. So then you're observing the body, you're taking all of this information in, you're able to then show the client, here's what I'm observing in your body, just like your practitioner said to you, right?
Yeah.
Earning, having to take care of everything, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And the
okay.
thing is, the information is already there when the client and the practitioner is revealing it. It's like when you tune into a radio station. Uh, this is the best way I explain how I do distance sessions, because people were so left brained. We're like, what? But I've had medical doctors on my table, which has been incredible, right? So this isn't just for the woo-woos out there. Chiropractors, medical doctors, right? What happens is I tune in. If you, there's a lot of radio stations out there, but you get fuzz until you tune right into the exact frequency, right? And then the message that was already there, you weren't tuned to the right frequency, becomes clear. And that's what we do in Body Talk. So we really connect on a conscious level to the client and tune into what I call their radio station or their frequency to access knowledge that's already in the collective consciousness. So sometimes I'll use examples of like twins, right? They share in utero together. They have a connection that is so subtle, sense-worthy, that they can like feel and sense and know things even when they're half a world away, right? Because
Mhm.
it's possible, because it's possible. So that is, a body talk is largely done with those right brain deep intuitive processes, but we also engage the left brain because so many of us are programmed in that left brain healing. Because the truth of it is we need both our left and our right brain in everything we do to really get a nice balanced approach to our wellness.
So we've got a question here. How do we tune into the right frequency? Or how do you tune into our frequency? So if we've got this frequency going, how do you tune into the radio station? How does that work for you?
So I am trained in a couple of advanced body talk methods where our creator, John Veltheim, came up with the training for it. It's basically a structured intuitive tool. So I'm trained in something called Mindscape, which is it's like me creating this office in my right brain and my intuition to really tune in and trust that the information that's coming up in my subtle senses is what is there and available for me to observe for the client. So what's really incredible about this is that most of us, our left brains are trying to make sense of something that's not really tangible. It's not as concrete as going for a massage. And, I feel I feel the practitioner working on the muscles, therefore I know it works. But I've had clients where I'm doing a distance session on them. They have no idea what I'm working on. They'll say to me, Laura, my elbows were tingling or my hands were really sweaty, and they'll get the recording and know that that's where I was working. So it's just incredible. And it's like one of those things you have to experience to truly understand.
So sorry, so this is a whole other level. So you're saying that you're doing this in distance now too. They don't need to be in
Okay.
front of you. You
Yeah.
don't need, their body does not need to be right there.
No. That's in fact the only way I get my sessions done now, and advanced practitioners all over the world, that's usually the only way they get their sessions done, because we know that's all that's required. The observation of the practitioner is all that's required for the healing of the client. And all I've been doing since COVID has been distance sessions with kids and families and teachers. And I'm amazed every single time. Again, I'm still very left-brained, and so it's like I have to be reminded how well this works, where clients will come back and just say, how in the world did you know that? And I feel so much better. So it's just it's an incredible, incredible modality.
Okay, so now I need to ask. So you're able to help people identify. And so for a lot of people who are in the matrix this week too, right, where we get into all the programming, they're starting to bring all of this up, and they're recognizing, oh, you know, maybe that didn't feel safe, or maybe it did, maybe it didn't feel good, maybe it did. So in the work that you do, it feels like there's this extra layer of now awareness for people if they were to come to you. So now the question I'm most curious about, well, I'm curious about all of it, but then how do you heal it? Like, how does that work? How are you able to, because that sounds like a magic pill to me, that just by remotely you could start to heal me without me needing to go through a 21-day challenge.
Well, here is the most phenomenal part of this, my friend. I don't do the healing. I'm the observer. Your body's innate wisdom does the healing. You are the healer. The client is the healer. So once they are revealed to the program, their subconscious, their body, because that's where I got the information to begin with, is able to, I mean, all that's required in the mind for any type of physical shift is awareness. Think about this. You get a phone call and you hear from a loved one that someone has passed away. You immediately have a physical shift in your body, fight or flight, things start to change in your systems. You are going into emergency mode. You didn't have to observe it yourself. You didn't see it. You didn't experience. You heard it with one of your senses. So our five senses connect us everything. And then we have these filtered belief systems that when we bring in the information, then it triggers our hypothalamus to either put us in fight or flight or healing. So when you hear me give you the recording for your BodyTalk session, just hearing me say, well, now we balanced your adrenal glands in relation to your stress about being shut down during COVID. Brain has observed it, it's become aware, sends a message in the body exactly, in opposite of when you hear bad news. So it can put it into healing mode. So that's as simple as I can. I mean, it doesn't get any simpler than that. I'm not the healer. I don't have any special magic power. If I did, let me tell you, girlfriend, I would fix a lot of shit, excuse my language, in the world.
No doubt, hey? But I think that is the power that we all have when we start tapping into it, right? Because if we heal ourselves and then we can show other people how to heal themselves, right? That's where it all starts.
Yeah, that's where the power is. But most of us don't believe that we even have the power. We put it into the hands of other people who we think are the healers and the fixers. And then when it doesn't work, we keep going back and we keep going back.
Yes.
And the power in it is acknowledging you have it.
So that I get, that I love, because you're right. I think a lot of people are looking for quick fixes and they're always looking for other people to fix themselves, right? We do give that away. I'm still trying to wrap my head around how, when we hear you say, if I hear you say, oh, Tanya, you've got some self-worth issues, right? Or opportunities for reconciliation, and we are going to adjust. So then you're telling me that you would say we're going to adjust adrenals or whatever the physical equivalent of that is in the body. Then you're telling me, here's what we're going to do physically. We're just doing this physically. I'm going to walk you through it. And then me hearing that is what's actually reconciling that in my body.
Yeah, so it's, I'll give you an example. So I did a session the other day, and what came up in the client was everything in her upper body. So her shoulders came up, her neck came up, in between her shoulder blades, her upper thoracic spine came up, and it was all orientating to belief systems about the role of motherhood and trying to balance everything right now and juggle life. And this was a distance session, and I tuned into her consciousness of tightness and tension, belief systems about needing to be the fixer and needing to solve everyone's problems, you know, and so I sent her the recording, got her to do a little bit of tapping. Often we will get you to do some tapping because, again, that gets your left brain on board to think, hey, I'm tapping, it must be working. But I mean, the tapping isn't a prerequisite of the healing. It's just engaging that left brain, right brain. And so once the body has that new program, it's just like when you learn your subconscious programming, Tanya, from 0 to 7, you didn't know that you were being programmed.
Right.
You observed, that's it. You got the program. So we're like working backward here. So it's like you observe, you rewrite the program just by observation. And so it's those left brainers and people like you and I, and all of those people maybe on the call who very much are attached to knowing and knowing all the answers and making sure we can dissect it, understand it. Therein lies a lot of our own hurdle to true healing, because we don't need to know for healing to occur. You know, we don't think our bodies into healing. It's got this innate, you know, and if you will, divine mechanism that it does it for us. What blocks it is our belief systems. That's why BodyTalk in kids works phenomenal, quicker sometimes than it does in adults, because they don't have those rigid belief systems. They don't give 2 cents about how it works or how I tuned into it. They hear the session. Like I did a session last week for an 8-year-old, a 10-year-old whom I never met. And the mom was like, Laura, they loved it. They feel better. They understand everything you said. And they are so thankful. And I was like, well, that's amazing.
Wow. Well, I just had an aha moment when you were saying that. And so I'm going to try to process it in verbiage as it comes out here. When you were talking about the left brain and needing to understand everything, and I can hear myself as I detach, I can hear myself asking you the questions consistent. So how does it work? Explain to me how, step by step. And so my aha moment in that is needing to know exactly how it works, like breaking it down. I've always attached the language being pragmatic, right? Like understanding systematically how this is going to work so our mind can wrap our head around it. But now I'm seeing the flip side of that might be not trusting, right? Like just this not trusting that it just is and that it can just work. I don't know. That's what came to mind to me when you were saying this. That was maybe it's because I don't trust that it really just could be that simple. That Laura just says, here's what I'm doing. And your brain's going to take all this information and then fix what needs to be fixed.
The trust goes beyond trusting me. It goes to trusting yourself, right? Because I'm not the healer. You are. It goes, and that's why a lot of people, not a lot, but some people will be very resistant with this because they don't think that they can do it.
Yes.
They don't believe it to be. And the other issue about this, and most people who are very attached to belief systems about money, right?
Yeah.
We also have very rigid belief systems about control, right? Let's be honest. We'll just say that dirty word, control.
Yeah.
Lots of people don't like to use it, but it's true because control makes us feel insecure. And so there's definitely a level of vulnerability when people move into a different mindset and a different shift of awareness that, hey, it doesn't actually have to be as hard as I thought it did to heal and to move through these layers. If I just open my mind and change my lens a bit to a perspective that maybe has not always been my perspective, I can experience a different result.
Wow. I'm processing all of that. Like I'm just taking it all in because it could just be that. So I see so many correlations and parallels with the week 3, right? That it really can just be as simple as feeling good.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. You know what? We've been conditioned to think, well, why would you? No. When do you ever ask anybody, hey, how are you doing? And they say, I'm actually doing freaking fantastic. Everything's good. No, it's because we really, at the core of who we are, we get a lot from being in victim mode when things aren't quote unquote always good. It's like, actually, we get attention, we get love, So if we just say to someone, hey, I'm actually fantabulous, things are going well, feel good.
Yeah. You bring up a really good point, because I know a lot of people, when they go through the matrix, they've done all the work, right? And especially when they finish their work week 3, and they're still, I don't want to say a block there, but for some reason, the matrix isn't connecting, right? The money isn't flowing in. And so then the question often becomes, okay, so how is being a victim serving you? Right?
Yes.
How is being a martyr serving you? Because just like you said, you nailed it. You're getting something out of it. Do people feel sorry for you? Do they come around bearing gifts? Do they give you lots of hugs? Do they sit and listen to you? You know, like, what is it? There's something there that if you're not shaking it, that it's serving you in some way.
Yeah, and that's why I love what you do. And you have an incredible gift because you have married two very powerful perspectives together that can really help heal so many people's relationship with money. Listen, for some reason, it must have been part of my programming. I'm not sure. Probably my dad, because he was very much an entrepreneur. And I never heard a lot about complaining about money, or even if we were hard up, it was never really in my face. And I've never not made things work financially. I walked away from $100,000 salary and opened up a practice on BodyTalk, of which nobody knew what the heck it was in my small city here. I was the first BodyTalk practitioner, and I started with 7 clients, and now I have hundreds and hundreds. That's because I had that core belief system that didn't root me in fear of manifestation of money. And it's very innate, right? And I'm always like, yeah, it'll work. I'll make it work. But that's not the case for everyone, and it's not as simple as that for everyone. So my hangups lie in other places, the big hangups, although I still have a lot of my own hangups with my relationship with money, in worth, for sure. We all do. So yeah, it's interesting stuff.
Well, I think that's always, and I forget who it is that that I can attribute this quote to. His name escapes me right now. I'll find it. But it's, part of our human experience, the greatest longing is for appreciation, right?
Mm,
And it's at the end of the day, when we start thinking about why, right? Why the job, why the money, why, it's really, at the end of the day, it always boils down to appreciation. So I personally have not met anybody that has escaped that fundamental need in all of their, in their
no.
existence and their motivation for doing things. At the end of the day, it's appreciation. Another word, love, right? And just that word scares people sometimes when I say that word to people. But wow. So I have to say, I'm so excited for working with you and the program that we're going to go through. And I obviously, I'm not going to say I'm going to do some work, but I am definitely going to do some awareness of going into this and realizing that it can just be that easy to just sit in that state and just let you say what you need to say. And then my body will hear that. I'm fascinated, and I'll start sharing with people the experience that comes out of this. And it'll be very interesting, I think, going in, knowing what I know, knowing what most people know after week 2, where some of their blocks already are, how easy and simple this can be to come to a BodyTalk practitioner and just have some of these things just ease away, right? Just fall off. Is that what you would call it? It's just like it eases you
It
ease into a
shifts.
different path, or you
It
shift.
shifts. Yeah.
You
And
shift.
for some
Okay.
people, it doesn't shift quick. You
Okay.
know, we've taken, I mean, I'm 40, so it's 4 decades of programming, and it's the same awareness of, you don't go into your massage therapist and expect her to take 40 years worth of pain out of your, your muscles in one massage. And what's interesting is when these shifts happen, we can have then, after a session, a big event, a trauma or a painful experience that roots us right back to our old programming. But what I want my clients to understand is it's not about changing the programming as much as it's becoming aware of how tightly attached you are to seeing that program play out the way you need it to play out. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So we're stretching ourselves a bit. And that's, I think, what gets a lot of people hung up in this whole self-care, self-improvement, is that the industry has you thinking that you have to change. You
Mm-hmm.
don't. How, I
Mm-hmm.
mean, change is so hard, but awareness and observation about patterns and attachments. And so now I still get, angry or upset about things, but the actual mechanism by which that I show that has changed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Much more zen. I'm much more tuned in to my own needs. And so yeah, it's an incredible journey, and I'm so thankful that you invited me here to talk about it. I said to my husband, before I leave the face of this earth, I want to talk to as many people as I can, as many kids as I can, about body talk and conscious-based wellness, because in my eyes, that's where the magic happens.
I
So
love
thank
it. So, well, thank you. And speaking of kids, maybe giving you a window here, because you're doing some incredible work with kids right now through COVID, right? And kids can access it manually. And I just heard about it for the first time with your talk with Andrea this morning on her coffee chat. Can you just share with us that work and let everybody know, in case they have kids that need to tap into extra support mechanisms out there?
Absolutely. So I spent over a decade in the classroom as a teacher, and I've been a coach and a leader and a mentor for youth ever since I've been 15. And so last year I really sat down with my husband and I said, listen, I want to do something where I connect back to youth. I miss being in the classroom. I want to use these skills and this stuff I know to help shift the lives of kids. So I created a movement called Youth Matter, which was a mental wellness symposium last fall. I had over 300 youth from 11 different schools and communities in the Northeast here come together, and it was a platform for connection, feel loved, feel seen, and feel heard. And since COVID hit, like I was saying this morning, I think many of us are forgetting about the next generation, because they are so resilient and they are so strong, and they will just blend in and do what they need to do to have their parents, take care of stuff, right? That they're really experiencing a very traumatic event right now in their own lives. It's like almost apocalyptic for them. They have just lost every freedom, and I wanted to create a platform that was virtual for them to connect. So this Tuesday, well, tonight, and for the next 6 weeks, I'm piloting a series that is free for kids called Teen Talk Tuesday. I've invited some of the mental wellness advocates who joined me last October, and we're just doing this connect chat via Zoom for kids to come on,
Awesome.
share their struggles, talk about things. We're going to offer them lived experiences. We're going to offer them some wellness tools, and it's going to be fantastic. So
I
I'm
love
hoping
it.
to take it big scale. So this actually
Yeah.
goes broader.
Yeah. Thank you for doing that work, Laura. It's so important. And I think, especially as adults, right? Here we are investing all of this time, all of this money into figuring out our programming, especially if you have young kids right now, how we're showing up for them through COVID. This is going to be a part of their programming. And so oftentimes we don't have the tools. And so tapping into experts like Laura and the colleagues that she's put together to give them a place to talk about what they're experiencing. Because like we were just saying, you observe what happened, right? You observe it, you witness it, then you interpret it, and then you have an emotion that gets attached to it, one way or the other. And whatever we're feeling oftentimes is what they're sitting in. So, Laura, I just, again, thank you for this work. It's so important for kids to be able to have an outlet, to be able to talk about what they're seeing, even especially as it pertains to, my mom's going off the deep end over here. She's got gloves on us all the time, whatever that might look like and how it feels for them, because oftentimes they won't tell us, right, how it's feeling for them. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. It's so important. And thank you for being on this call. And I'm still wrapping my head around it, but I think what I'm taking away from this call is to stop wrapping my head around it, stop the left brain, let it go, and just trust in the process. And so I'm so excited to do our first session, and I'll keep weighing in on the matrix and let everybody know what's going on with it. So thank you for that. Thanks for investing your time.
Yes, you're welcome. There's so much freedom in it. And so once you get there, you'll never go back. I'm telling you.
I'm all in. I'm all in. Well, thank you. Thank you everybody on the call for joining. We will put a recording of this into the